There we go. Hello. Ah, there we go. It's working. All right. Let's rock and roll. First session. Very excited about this. All right. So this is going to be a bit of trial and error today because I've never done one of these before, and I want to test a few things. So, um, essentially, I want to be at your service for the next hour, hour and a half. I want to answer all the questions that you guys have in detail, as much detail as I possibly can. Um, on future sessions, I'm going to limit the amount of people that we have on these sessions, just so I can have more value, add more value. So this one has an unlimited amount of people that can join, and I want to add as much value. So I think what the best structure will be is if you have a question, put your question either in the chat. Let me just make sure everyone can do that, or in the Q&A. Hey, Nick, can you try and ask a question or something just so I can see where it comes up from? Oh, I don't know, wherever you think the question should be. Oh, there we go. So it comes up in my Q&A. Yeah. Would you invest in Perth? Great starting question. There we go. All right, cool. So everyone's on. So if people can go through and if there is some questions that I can go through and answer, let's fire away because I have no fixed agenda here. I have prepared nothing. I just have myself, my time, and I want to be at service to you guys. So fire away. Put in the questions what I can answer. Nick starts with, would you invest in Perth? Anonymous attendee. Come on, don't be anonymous. Let's ask questions as people here. Ash Needham, good evening. Thank you. Do you have a question, Ash? Fire away. Yeah, I can do that. Yeah. Come on, don't be nervous, everyone. This is not going to be valuable if no one asks questions. Hey, Stacey, let's get Stacey. Stacey will ask a question. Stacey loves asking questions. Where are we? Where's Stacey? Hey, Stacey, you can talk now. Go off mute. Ask me a question. You've always got amazing questions.
Really, I mean,
hello, Stacey.
hello, I'm on the bus still.
You're on the bus. Very good. Very good. You're on the bus. Come on, fire away. What question can you ask on the bus, Stacey?
Okay, the question is why focus on capital growth, not cash flow?
Stacey, why should this would be a great question for you to answer? Why do we focus on capital growth, not cash flow?
So that's me.
So, that's right. So just for context, everyone, Stacey actually works with us at Henderson, and she's an avid property investor. And interestingly enough, she asks that question with some context behind it. So essentially, why we focus on capital growth and not cash flow is because when we're investing in real estate, 99% of people who invest in real estate use debt to be able to do so, right? They borrow a lot of money from the bank and they generally put in either none of their own money because they're using equity from another property, or they put in a very little amount of their money. Now, it's funny because any other asset class in the world that you leverage into, it is for capital growth. It is for the growing your capital. Hence the reason you use a lot of someone else's money to be able to do it. And property is no different, but people just have this conception that we try and do it to generate cash flow. When cash flow from real estate is generally just to be able to cover the cost of debt or to contribute to the cost of our debt, being the interest we have to pay banks. But the money is really made not from the little bit of cash flow that we can generate maybe on top of the interest that we pay banks, but it is by using a lot of the bank's money, putting in a little bit of our money, and then getting the growth on the total asset. And that's what makes the most amount of money. So, I know lots of people who have bought properties and they've paid, their mortgage and they put a bit of cash flow in their pocket. But in 5, 10, 15 years time, if they're worth the same or even just a little bit more than what someone paid for it, you still don't feel any wealthier because we know it takes a long time to pay down debt. And if you're actually living off that cash flow that the assets are providing, as opposed to paying off your debt with it, then you feel usually just as poor as when you started. So that's why we invest for growth and not cash flow. So here we go. Q&A is starting to come in. Pat, I'm gonna allow you to talk. There he is. Pat has his hand up. Pat, fire away, legend. Go off mute and ask away.
Hey, mate. Pleasure to speak to you in person, I guess.
Likewise.
So I guess in terms of purchasing property, what are the driving statistics that you like to review up front? Like let's say you're on realestate.com.au, you see a property. What are the first stats that you look at to start driving the conversation in your head, to then drive deeper to actually reaching out to the real estate agent or whoever it may be, to actually make you go from just window browsing to being serious and following through on that purchase? And I guess what tools, websites do you use to gather those?
That's a great question. So have you, as we're going through this process, have you decided on a location that you're going to buy in, or are you still doing the research as to where you may buy?
Research as to where you may buy.
Cool. So we're doing location research first.
Yeah.
So you've probably heard me, if you follow my content, you've probably heard me talk a lot about historical data. And the reason I focus so heavily on that is just because it gives me, and I'm assuming anyone else who invests in a good location, a lot of confidence that the area will perform into the future, right? It makes sense. If an area has performed really well for the past 20, 30, 40 years, then it'd be highly unlikely that it wouldn't perform into the future over a long enough time horizon. Obviously, there's peaks and troughs in every marketplace. So what I focus on first, let's hypothetically say that I am exploring a marketplace. You hear one of these hotspot markets. Let's just say you hear Perth or you hear, Cairns or whatever it is. You just hear these markets. You go, okay, that's interesting. Go on realestateanddomain.com. I don't go and search for property first. I generally go to the sold section first. And I go and pick 10 addresses, for example. I then go and it could be 10 addresses in the different suburbs around that region. I then go and I search those addresses in Google. And essentially what you'll find through a link to domain or a link to realestate.com is you can then see, if you scroll down on the link, when those properties last sold, and essentially the sales history of those properties. And I just do some really quick maths, obviously. It's like if it sold for X in 1994 and it sold again in 2008 and it sold again in 2022 or whatever it is, what has that growth rate been over that period of time? I think I did a video a couple of days ago. It was about, I think, a region in Tasmania. And I knew nothing about that area before. I just get my research team to say, hey, go and find me a shit area that hasn't performed real well, so I can, make a video about it. They come back to me with that area. I don't know anything about it. And I do some research, and I just simply went to realestate.com. The first property I clicked on it. I then Googled what it sold for, and it sold for less than what the person bought it for in 2022 and was what it sold for in 2024. And I was like, what are the odds of that happening? And in good markets, that really doesn't happen. Like, it's highly unlikely that you sell property for less than what you pay for it. Sometimes if you sell it in a quick time frame, you might sell it for the same. But that's really the thing that I look at is, if I'm exploring an area, I go onto realestateanddomain.com. What are properties selling for? What have they sold for in the past? Is there, consistent growth? And then, I do more research naturally. So I hope that answered.
Yeah, for the steps after that, based on location history, would you then start looking at like your rental yields and bits and pieces like that to try and project?
So, look, rental yields are a funny one because rental yields change, over time. And a lot of people look at a rental yield at a point in time or the point in which they purchase the property, and they forget to understand, or they forget to project forward that the rental yield that they buy the property at is not the rental yield that it will be in the future, right? Because your purchase price of a property never changes. It's always the same. In 20 years' time, the purchase price is the same as when you bought it, right? But the thing that does change is your rental income slowly increases over time. So your yield against your purchase price gets better, which is good. So I don't really focus on that all too much. One thing I do focus on, and one thing we buy a lot of for clients, is we want to be able to manufacture rental yield. So if we have to buy a property that's got a gross rental yield of 3.5%, whatever it is, that's just the unfortunate reality of buying good real estate in good locations. And the reason the yields are low is because the capital growth has well and truly exceeded the growth of rental income, which is what happens. But then if you can manufacture rental yield by like adding a dual occupancy or doing a renovation to the existing property or whatever it is, that's a really good quick win in the short term to increase your cash flow to hold the property, and then you'll get your consistent increases over time. So I don't necessarily look into the rental yield all that much because you're not going to see a huge amount of variance. I look at capital growth. That's the number one thing I focus on. Obviously, it's super important to understand the demographic. We are on the ground in all the locations that we buy property in. I would never buy a property in a location that I hadn't visited or seen or understood. A lot of people probably have bought properties and they've never been to these locations. And I guarantee if they went there, they would never live there. They would never let their kids walk around on the streets, which blows my mind. So, that would probably be the next thing is if I'm really serious about spending $500,000, $1 million, $1.5 million on a property, I'd probably want to go and see these areas. I'd probably want to understand it in a little bit more detail. And that costs money, that takes time. But you're not, spending $2 here, you're spending lots of money. So I hope that helps. All right, let's do it. Next question. Love the pyramid scheme, wealth scheme, Dylan Rogers, mate. Absolutely. You wait till you see this course, an absolute banger. Just as an FYI, I'm only going to answer questions where people have actually put their name because there's nothing scary about this. Kyle Gardner, I hope you're happy to talk because I am about to pull up your name and we are chatting. All righty. Chat. Oh no, that's the wrong one. Sorry. Allow to talk. That's the needed button I need to click. Kyle Gardner, are you there? My good friend.
I am, mate. How are you?
Good.
Good.
There we go, mate. Hit me. Your question was around interest rates.
Yeah, what's your thoughts on interest rates? I've got a house that I'm holding at the moment after living in it for many years. Holding it and it's been rented out at the moment. So just was holding it hopefully to the end of 25, thinking interest rates could drop this year. Your thoughts?
Yep. And just for a little bit more context for myself, what is the purpose of holding it and then obviously hoping rates drop?
I've just been through a divorce, got 3 kids, so just still trying to keep something behind me to better mine and my kids' future. So,
yeah, and you're selling. So if rates drop, it sounds like you want to sell the property. Is that right?
At that point, yeah, I'd want to sell the property, and then from there, I'd be hopefully looking at doing some more investing with that money. Probably 2 properties.
That makes sense.
And then me renting something out.
And the reason that you would want to sell it after rates start to decrease, I'm assuming, is because you think the property will sell for more than what it would right now?
Yes.
Cool. Okay. So the context is, do you think rates will drop and do you think my property will be worth more if they do? So do I think rates are going to drop? Like it's near a guarantee. Like, I mean, the banks and all these economists are much smarter than what Jack Henderson is. And they're all saying that rates are likely to decrease. Some are saying they're likely to decrease even this month, which would be a big win for you and an even bigger win for me because I have a lot of debt. So I hope they do. And if, all we can do is look at history and go, well, what has happened in the past when rates have decreased? Now, what has happened in the past is obviously it gives buyers more confidence to act because people think the future is going to be better than the past. So they act with more confidence. They have more serviceability, which means they can spend more money on property. And, there's a better buyer sentiment. Now, the issue is if we think about your situation, Kyle, and you go, well, I want to wait until interest rates drop before I sell. How many other Kyle Gardners do you think there are in the world, or in Australia, I should say, that are also thinking the same, right?
Yeah.
There's probably quite a few. So do I think a 0.25% decrease in rates is going to dramatically change the sale price of your property? Probably not. But do I think it's going to create, longer term optimism in the marketplace? Probably. But it's not going to turn a shit property into a good property, and I don't think it's going to dramatically change, maybe selling your property from $500,000 to $650,000. Just not where we are, I think, like on the macro economic times.
Yep. For a more expensive property, you think it'll make more of a difference?
Probably not. And when you say more expensive, like give me context as to the price of the property.
Probably 1.8.
In an area where most properties are not 1.8?
Correct. Would be the median price for the area is about 1.5.
Okay, so it's not dramatically more expensive. Look, I don't think so. And I also don't think it'll happen straight away. So if you're thinking like rates will drop and then the price will be more expensive tomorrow.
Yep.
Unlikely. Like there'll probably be a lag effect to this because like the reality is a lot of people are struggling. Like it's more expensive, a lot more expensive life now than it was 24 months ago or 36 months ago. So I don't think a 0.25% interest rate, right, all of a sudden people are going to go, let's go spend up. But then you also need to think about, let's say you do sell your $1.8 million property for more, high probability that you then go buy more assets also at a higher price. So like,
yes,
I guess in the grand scheme of things, it's not going to make a massive difference unless there is a significant decrease in rates like we saw leading up to COVID and obviously during COVID, which I just can't foresee happening.
Okay, great. Thank you for answering my question and for the commentary.
No, my pleasure.
Cheers.
All righty. So where are we? Where are we here? Who's next? Samson, you are next cab off the rank. Here we go. Oh, I've got two people here now. It's no good. Oh, shit. Just a second, disable talking. There we go. Samson, you there?
Yeah, mate, I'm here.
How are you, man?
Good.
Mate, fire away your question. It was around holiday letting, short-term leasing.
Yes, so I've just purchased a duplex about 12 months ago.
Congrats, man.
Renovated it, and I'm currently going through the whole holiday letting. I've got a property manager looking after everything. And yeah, I was just wondering what your thoughts were. If I'm getting good cash flow, is it worth maybe trying to look for another, maybe possible duplex and keep continuing the same sort of deal?
So let me ask a few more questions. Where is this property?
So I live in Harvey Bay.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's probably one of your shitholes.
Come on, it's not that
But it's
bad.
in a pretty good location, one street back from the Esplanade. It's
By
been
the water. Yep.
yeah, it's been doing pretty good. Our property manager is really good. So
yep. So you own both sides of this duplex, correct?
Yes. Yep. The whole thing. Yep.
Cool. So what would it lease for if it was a full-term rental, like each side or combined, whatever it is?
I'd say $550 a week. It would, but
each side.
Each side, yeah.
Cool. So it's $1,100 a week, and what are you getting at the moment on short-term leasing on average?
On a good month, probably 8,000 a month.
Not a good month, on average.
On average, let's say 5, 6.
5 or 6 grand a month. So it doesn't sound like it's too dissimilar to what you'd be getting on a full-time rental if you then take out your 15 to 20% management fees and shit, I'm assuming you're paying.
Yeah, that's with management fees. So it's probably, I think the best month I did was 14,000. That's before fees.
Yeah. And yeah, but like so have you got like have you owned it for 12 months?
Yeah, just about. It's just about going over the 12-month for the cash flow for the holiday letting. Obviously, the renos took 3 months to finish.
Yeah. So look, I think it's a good strategy, especially if you buy the right assets. Like I personally have a couple of properties that I short-term lease, not because I want to increase the cash flow, but because I also want to use the properties myself. And you get a lot more income. There's no doubt about it, especially if it's the right property. The downside to it is if you try and reborrow and buy more, banks don't look at it as favorably unless you have a really long history of showing them proof of income. And it comes with obviously, you know, the fees and everything that's associated with it. So like your gross returns can look better, but you know, we self-manage it. I've obviously got fortunate enough to have staff that help with that. If we didn't, and then I took out the, 20% for management and all that jazz, doesn't look as sexy. So it's a good strategy overall, no doubt about it. And the lower the level of debt that you carry on these properties, naturally, the more surplus cash flow that comes off it. But I still don't think it is a strategy that's going to create money, like lots of money. Like at the end of the day, if those properties in Harvey Bay go from being whatever they're worth to double what they're worth, that's going to make you a lot more money than, a couple of grand a month of income of which you'll pay, tax on. So yeah, you still, from my point of view, want to make the main thing, which is buying good assets that are going to have really good growth, not just buying assets that will or will potentially not do well on short-term leasing. And another thing, which I don't know if it'll happen in Hervey Bay or any other location, but there's been a lot of changes in recent time as to how long you can have your property let out for on short-term leasing. I think maximum now in New South Wales is 6 months or 180 days of occupancy. And then when you start to do 180 days of occupancy as opposed to a little bit more than that on your nightly rate, it becomes again less appealing. And I know it's the same thing, and like they started it in Byron Bay to begin with. So they're just all the things to be conscious of.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
Mate, my pleasure. But yeah, definitely focus on growth, because growing your capital base, and then eventually when you've got lots of equity and you can sell those properties and cash out and have a big chunk of cash in the bank, investing that cash purely then for cash flow will likely get you a better outcome than having an asset carrying debt and then trying to cash flow the debt during when you should be trying to grow your money, essentially.
Great.
Alrighty. Pleasure, man. Alrighty. Harrison Gorman, mate. Here we go. Big Gormo. Harrison, you there, big man? There he is.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Mate, got you loud and clear.
Sweet. Thanks, Jack. Love your content, by the way. It's
Thank you,
always
man.
good. Yeah, love got the noties on and stuff like that. So loving it. Just two questions. One is about blocks of units. I feel like I haven't seen much content about you on that topic.
Yep.
And another question is just about the how inflation devalues debt over time. I feel like it's
Sure.
a pretty important concept. I just don't know if it just sounds like that's all there is to it. It just devalues the debt over time. I'm not sure if you can expand on that or.
For sure. I'll start with the apartment blocks first, and then I'll roll on to devaluing our debt. Just a caveat: I'm not an economist. I can just talk through my experiences, what I know, obviously. So, apartment blocks generally are not that appealing, and the reason I say that is because they're still usually, not always, but usually classed as residential assets. And let's assume, the funny story is I'm actually acquiring a block of 6 apartments for myself. I started with the first one, then I bought the second one, currently buying the third one. Eventually I'll buy all 6. But the reason I'm doing that is because it has a future development play on the site. I've actually created videos on this particular property, which if you scroll back through content, you probably will find the video. It makes more sense to me because over time I can acquire the properties. I don't need to have all the capital up front now. I can slowly acquire each apartment, which is probably worth somewhere between 800 and $1.5 million bucks. And I don't need all the money right now. And I'm the youngest one in the building, so hopefully I outlive everyone and I will eventually own the whole thing. That's my thesis. And the cool thing is that I can, eventually I'll take majority strata vote, which will be 75% and above. Then I can start to implement getting plans approved and all the rest of it. And then, like it or love it, the other people will be forced to sell, and hopefully I'm the buyer for those properties. So that's a strategy that works. Lots of developers do it, and they do it very successfully, but it's usually not as a passive play. It's usually because there is an upside to that block. So the block that I'm buying is right on the beach, and houses around there are worth 8 to 15 million bucks. So that's the cool thing with it. Now, if you just went and bought a block of apartments that has no upside, generally what happens is you've got obviously your strata fees. Strata, when you control it, is essentially just your insurance and everything else. You have no upside to the block. You have, usually a pretty significant land tax bill, especially if you're in New South Wales in good areas. So if you're in Bondi, for example, you'd have a big land tax bill. And there's really no upside to it. And it also then only appeals when you sell to an investor, not an owner-occupier. I mean, you can sell them off individually if they're on their own titles. And what a lot of people do is if they buy an apartment block that's on one title, they'll then go through and try to strata title them. But then usually, again, when you run feasibilities, by the time you add in, all of the requirements around fire safety and fire retardant walls and sprinkler systems and, all the shit that goes into it to do a strata subdivision, it doesn't usually work. So they're not as appealing, I don't think. Like if you go and look at an apartment block, buying a whole apartment block, depending on the price point in which you think, but if I was to go buy one, I'd be spending minimum 5 million bucks, more likely 10 million. I'd probably have to put in 30% capital into that deal minimum. And my rental yield on it would be like 3.5% gross. And because it's residential still, the landlord pays all of the outgoings. Whereas if I went and parked that 10 mil in a commercial asset, I'd still have to put in the same 30%, but the tenant pays all of the outgoings. I have way less expense, and my rental yield would probably double, potentially even triple that of the apartment block. So that's my take on it. Now, it may be different in regional locations and stuff like that, but generally, man, it's not doesn't work as well as maybe it perceived from the outside. It's definitely not like America. Like if you listen to Grant Cardone and all these guys who buy these multifamily
there's
joints,
a lot of American accounts, Twitter accounts, and they love them, like the multifamilies.
It's not the same though.
Yeah.
It's not the same. Yeah, and it may become the same, but like so where you've probably read rent to buy. Have you heard anything about rent to buy or
No,
not
I
rent
have
to buy,
not.
sorry.
No.
Not rent to buy. I've said the wrong word. The build to rent product. Have you heard of that? So that's
Yes.
more like the US, where they build buildings and they own the whole building, and it's only a building that you can rent in. No one can ever buy it. But again, the rental yields in Australia are not the same as the US. Like even in the build to rent space, like people are spending 150, 200 million bucks building a building that's going to return them like a 3%, 4% rental yield. And the only people doing that stuff, and this is why a lot of them haven't got off the ground, the only people doing that stuff are people like super funds when they just want to buy defensive assets. Like residential real estate is a defensive asset because it'll be tenanted every day for the rest of life. But as a rental yield for a normal investor like you and I, it just doesn't make any sense because your cost of debt is significantly more than the income that you're getting. Where CBUS, for example, if they were to buy one, they don't have debt because they pay cash. So that's the difference. Did that help?
That does, yeah. Thanks for explaining that. It does make a lot of sense. Thank you.
And then the second part to the question was around debt and how inflation devalues our debt, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So I look at software all day, every day, because my whole role now inside of my company is I build out strategies and I talk to our clients. And we have this beautiful thing that shows us inflation and what it does to our money. Like if someone says, I want $500,000 of passive income or $100,000 of passive income, whatever the number is, we have to inflation adjust that number to when they want that passive income. Because if we target what they want today and don't inflation adjust it out, that same amount of money is not going to buy them the same thing in 20 years' time, right? So what we see is over a 10-year period at 2.5% per annum, let's say you wanted $100,000 of passive income, 2.5% over 10 years almost devalues our dollar by 30%, essentially meaning we need 30% more money between now and 2035 to get the same buying power as our money has today. And the way that happens is because money continues to get printed into our economy, right? If we had the same amount of money and it never changed in our global economy and it never went up or down, the supply of money, then inflation wouldn't be a thing. And essentially what would happen is all of the money would go to the wealthiest people in the world and the poorest people in the world would have zero. But because there's continuum money getting printed into our economy, there's more and more money to buy the same amount of things, which essentially means our money buys us less. So that, and because of that, like $100,000 of debt today in 10 years' time is still, it's not the same because again, our dollar needs 30% more to get the same thing. Make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Thank you.
So, we just do it at 2.5% per annum because that's the midpoint between what the RBA target. I actually think the long-term average is slightly above that. I actually think the long-term average is maybe in the early 3%. But it's essentially like every year, if you need 3% more money to buy the same shit, that just compounds over time. And that's just a fact of economics. But like I said, I'm definitely not an economist. So
yeah, that's right. No,
that's my
thank you for
understanding
that.
of it.
Cheers, mate.
Easy, man. Alrighty, here we go. Jack Nicolau, your next cab off the rank. Hope you're still here. Here we go. There he is. Allowed to talk. Bang. You there, Jack?
Hello, can you hear me?
Mate, we got you loud and clear.
Awesome. My question was, when buying a property to be negatively geared, what is the max percentage of the repayments you would allow to be not covered by the rent? So say your repayments are $1,000, how much should your rent be at minimum?
I'm not a great person to ask this question to because I probably have a slightly different belief system to most. For example, I have properties where the mortgage, I've got one at the moment, which is again a longer term development play. Mortgage is $14,000 a month on that property. and the rent I get is $900 a week. So what's that roughly? $900 a week times 52 is about 45 grand a year. So it works out about $4,000 a month.
Yeah.
I'm $10,000 a month negative on that property.
Yeah,
So,
right.
you know, it's not extraordinary, that's for sure. But my longer term play with that property is that it is in one of the best streets in the suburb. I could not buy that block of land now if I try to buy it for the same price. And I have a lot of confidence that it'll be worth a significant amount more in the future. And you'll see that. Like if you go to really good quality locations, and you probably see me do my rent vesting videos where I'm like, I did one today that I posted, $7 million house someone just paid for, you can rent it for $1,500 a week. It's a 1% rental yield. So if you look at that and you go, why would someone ever buy that? It's because they're confident that that property that they paid 7 for is going to be worth 14.
Yep.
That's the key. Now, if you're, just an investor that's trying to scale a portfolio, you want to try and get it as close as possible to neutral as you possibly can, right?
Yep.
So what we don't want to do though is we don't want to go and invest in locations just because the cash flow of that asset is good. We want to invest in locations where it's still growth focused. We're still in a location that's got really strong capital growth, but we manufacture our rental yield through things like dual occupancies and granny flats and all that jazz. Because then we're not foregoing our future capital growth, and we're increasing our yield to be more in line with what the mortgage is costing us. And it's also important to think not in months and years, but to try and think in as long term as you can. I try and think in decades, because in 10 years time, if you got a 4% rental increase every single year and your debt and repayments remained relatively similar, eventually what would happen is your rental income would grow and hopefully exceed the cost of your repayments. And that's what happens over time, right? So I don't focus too heavily on it, but at the same token, you want to try and do everything you can to increase the yield to a point where it's costing you as little as it possibly can. But don't be afraid of, paying a little bit of money out of your pocket, because again, it's a point in time. 4 years ago, when we had 2% rates, you wouldn't even be thinking about this. Now we have slightly higher rates. You are thinking about it. And as interest rates decrease over the next 3, 4, 5 years, our repayments will decrease with that. And all of a sudden, cash flow becomes less of the thing that's on your mind. So I guess it's just understanding that point in time where we are in the cycle.
Righto. And I had another question. If you're a first-time investor for about 650K borrowing capacity, and you live in Sydney, have you been recommending to clients more so buy something standalone or a villa outside of Sydney, or more so buy an apartment in Sydney in a good location?
It's a great question. Generally, what I say is, if you're in Sydney, especially, 650 gets you sweet fuck all, unfortunately, as you would probably know.
Yeah.
And it's probably going to get you a pretty shit apartment, or a pretty shit villa. So I probably wouldn't advise either of those things. When I bought my first property, it got you a little bit more, but the market is no longer like that. So we generally advise our clients to go, if they want to stay in New South Wales, to Lake Macquarie or to Newcastle, or go south to, certain pockets of Wollongong, for example. Because if you're trying to take advantage of the first home buyer incentives, it can still be your owner occupier property. You don't have to rent the property out, or you could potentially, live in one bedroom and rent out other rooms on flatmates, whatever it is. There's many ways to skin a cat. But you'll get a much better quality asset for your budget. You will get a standalone house in certain suburbs, and you'll get something you can add some value to. So we've got lots of young clients that have done exactly that.
Yeah, righto. Thanks.
Yeah, mate, my pleasure. Keep going, go hard. Alrighty. Where are we at? Mate, I love these questions. Very slow to start, but now we are absolutely cranking. Mate, let's get Big Alistair. The great man.
Hi, Jack. How you going?
Mate, I'm good. Is this the Alistair French?
Yes. Yep.
How are you, legend? Alistair's a client, everyone. So there we go. I'm pretty sure you were one of these great people who just did what I said, right?
Correct. Moved to New South Wales from Queensland.
There we go. So Jack, I think it was who just asked. Alistair's a man who did exactly what you were just inquiring about. Bought a really good asset, and you've since renovated it, have you not, Alistair?
Yes, correct. So I've done like an owner-occupied renovation.
Yep.
Lived in for 12 months, pretty much about to complete. And this is where I'm sort of looking for some advice around structuring.
Well, mate, you've got my direct contact number, so you can call me whenever, but let's do it right here.
Property is probably going to be worth 1.1 now. as it
Oh,
is.
good.
You're going to rent for $850 a week, thereabouts, 4 bed,
Yep.
4 bathroom. Have the potential to subdivide into a duplex on the back, put a granny flat on the back. So there's that. But my borrowing capacity to go forwards is around 600 to 650,000.
Yep.
Now, my thoughts are, do I sell this property, take the gains, and then my borrowing capacity is around 1.2. But if I was to then put that into, trust structures, company structures, from my understanding, I'll be buying for around 900. But, if it's self-sufficient, it could potentially allow me to scale further.
For sure. How much cash would you come out of? It's Wallsend, yeah?
Yeah, correct. I think
Yeah,
my
how much cash would you come out with?
position would be around 850 to 900,000.
Of cash?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that's
Yeah.
probably a good thing to do. And you'd be CGT free as well, right?
That's correct. Yep.
Yeah. So what you could do then, is you'd come out with 800 grand of cash.
Yes.
Fuck, that's good. So what I would do if I was in your shoes is, I would sell it down, I'd cash out. Your income, is it likely to dramatically increase over the next 5 years?
Yes.
It is.
Over the next 5 years. So for the next 24 months, probably not.
Yeah.
And I'll be using last year's financials, but going forwards after that, yeah, probably.
It's probably worth us chatting more in depth about this because it really depends on that income growth, right? Because you don't want to sell down this property, and I guess, allow or throw in, the future growth of the property because it is a good property. And if your income's going to grow, you're going to then get that serviceability eventually anyway that we're trying to free up right now. But I'd think about it in two ways. One way is potentially sell it down, free up your capital. If you've got, say, 900 of capacity inside of a trust and you've got, say, $600,000 to $800,000 of cash, you could split that $600,000 to $800,000 of cash, say, into 3 equal increments of 200 to 250 grand each, say. You could then go and buy inside of 3 trusts, subject to getting the right advice, obviously, around all this stuff. 3 $1 million assets, for example, put down 20% deposits, 50 grand for your stamp duty and costs, and I guess go from being in the position you are now to then potentially having, $3 million worth of assets. And because you'd only actually be carrying 80% debt on those properties, if you bought the right properties, they would cash flow themselves.
Yep. No, that makes sense.
So that would obviously be a good thing. Downside, no deductions inside of your trust, obviously. But if they're paying for themselves anyway, you won't have deductions. And what else to consider? And then you also have your personal borrowing capacity back. So let's chat.
The other thing I have to consider, I guess, is being that I've done like my owner builder's permit and whatnot, I could potentially build, again, like as I said, a duplex, 2-story duplex or granny flat out the back for a very minimal cost. For, probably half or 2/3 of what it would cost me to get a builder to do that.
Yeah.
So there's that value add potential as well. So do I look at doing a DA, subdivide, build a duplex on the back, and then sell both assets at probably,
You won't probably be able to get the borrowing capacity though, would you, to be able to build a duplex, do you think?
I've probably got around 200 sitting in the offset and then
of cash.
And then what I've got left in borrowing. If I wasn't
Potentially, we just have to run a feasibility on that to see whether it would actually make sense, because you would take away from the value of the existing asset naturally. So you have to build that in, and then you'd have to work out, well, if I was to spend, to build a duplex, depending on the size, obviously, you'd be spending minimum 400 grand aside, 450 grand aside. And that'd be for 3 better, and most likely more than that. But it's worth running numbers on. But let's do this. Shoot me a text so I don't forget, and let's do this tomorrow or the next day.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Thanks for your advice and giving your time.
Hey, my pleasure.
I'm sure we all appreciate
it. That's great. I didn't realize we had such good of an outcome. We didn't get a case study out of that bad boy. That's awesome, legend. And what did you originally put down as a deposit? It was something stupid. 300
and something. Yeah, so it was up there.
You put in extra cash. Yeah, I remember that. That was to increase your purchase price, huh?
Yep, correct.
Yeah, that's right. All right. Legend, man. Good shit. Congrats. Shoot me a message and we'll jump offline and chat about that. All righty. Alrighty, mate. Here we go. There's two Dylan Rogerses in here. Is it the Dylan Rogers? This one doesn't want to talk to me. Hello. Oh, no. What about this one? Is this a different Dylan Rogers? Surely. Or are we the same people?
Hello.
Hey, is this the Dylan Rogers?
The Dylan Rogers, yes.
Hello.
How you going, mate?
Mate, I'm good, man. I'm good. Hit me.
Alrighty. Two-parter, I guess. Reaching towards the end of serviceability restraints, purchasing a business.
Yeah.
In a franchise or sub 1 million to increase your income, because everything's about income. So just to go a bit further and a bit harder on purchasing more multiple properties, the property portfolio is a little bit negatively geared. Obviously, interest rates are up a little bit, but yeah, what's some options on probably some businesses that you would probably sway towards?
One that you love, which sounds so cliche, right?
Well, it's going to be renovating. So I love renovating. So pursuing that in some sort of a business sense would probably make sense.
100%, man. And I can assure you there's lots of money to be made in renovating if it's done correctly, as you would know. So for sure, like that type of stuff. Obviously, in the short term, you're probably going to give up some of that income that you earn, which I know is really, really strong, because you're going to have to probably pull away from that unless you can do it on the weekends and shit like that.
Yeah, 100%.
And when you're talking renovating, one thing that I've learned that works really well in business is not being a generalist. It's really niching. So like if you're gonna renovate, for example, I would just be like the specialist in certain thing, like a certain thing. So like obviously you've renovated before, you know what works, you know what you've done best, and you know what you probably love the most. An example of that would be like niching into I'm the bathroom renovation expert, for example, or like something like that, as opposed to just being like being like everyone else, right? And you can there's that many builders out there that have no work. So yeah, I would really niche in and just go after a certain segment of the marketplace, and then you can create a product around it and productize it as well. That's what I do.
Very good. Yeah, that definitely sounds
makes sense. Yeah. Similar like us, what we've done with the accelerator, right? Like we're not a luxury home builder. Like we renovate for a financial outcome, and we productized it through the accelerator strategy. Which, you know, fortunately I was to learn off Alex Hormozy. But so that's what you want to do. Yeah, is like find your niche and go into that actual niche, because you'll make a higher profit margin, which is obviously why you're in business. You'll do it faster, and you'll actually add more value to your ideal customer because you're not trying to be something to everyone. You're just a certain something to a specific type of person.
Love your stuff. Excellent.
Ledge on, brother. Good shit. Ciao, man. See you at the Chrissy party.
Yeah.
Bye, mate. Jackson Polwell, here we are. You're next. Oh, he's gone. Oh, Jackson Kelly, looks like you're next. Jackson Kelly, there he is. Jackson Kelly, you did ask a question. I did see it somewhere.
Yeah, it was in the Q&A section.
How are you, man?
Good. How are you?
Mate, I am good. How can I help?
Glad to hear. Basically currently looking to purchase a commercial shed for my business. I've been leasing for about 3 years, but my lease is up in about 4 months, and I've been looking to make that move for the last year or so. Just looking for some advice on basically purchasing an asset and finding the right asset. At the moment, I'm finding it hard to, basically just secure an asset, just because there's, from my point of view, not much stock on the market. So it's been quite hard to find one that fits my criteria. But there is a couple new builds around me where I'm looking. I'm just tossing up
like
whether
it's Brizzy,
in Brisbane, in Northside. I want to be around the Eagle Farm, Northgate, Virginia, sort of that precinct. But I'm just tossing up whether it's worth spending the extra money on a new build. Obviously, there's maybe not as much value add you can do to those properties. So I'm just sort of wondering if you have advice for me on how I should move forward with that, I guess.
For sure, man. So what's the reason that you want to buy an asset for your business to operate out of, as opposed to continuing to rent the asset that you're in now?
Basically, I need more size because I want to expand the business, and then obviously to generate more money that I can invest in the future. So I need more size basically for expanding the business, but I've saved up enough deposit to where I can buy my own property, and then sort of I was looking to possibly stay in it for about 5 years, pay down some debt, and then either, go again or figure out where I want to go at that stage, whether I even possibly look at residential. But either way, I want to get into property and sort of either commercial or resi, but I'm leaning towards commercial because I do obviously need a place for my business as well.
Yeah. What is your business, just out of curiosity?
It's an online automotive parts store. So,
Yeah, right. Okay. So you need more space so you can carry more inventory, essentially.
correct. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So it's a good question. So how much are you looking to spend on space?
I don't want to spend anything more than say $1 million, just because
million.
I'd like to expand the business a fair bit this year. So I need to hold on to a bit of capital, just obviously as grow inventory. So
Yeah. So that's what I'm thinking, right? It's a catch-22 because you're thinking about buying an asset which is likely going to suit you for a pretty short period of time. And your business is probably going to continue to grow. I'm not going to tell you what you should do, but I'm going to tell you how I would think about it. So, for example, we have different businesses, but instead of I need more space for people, you need more space for inventory. So I bought a building in Newcastle, and I'm currently looking for one in Sydney. And the way that I thought about it is, if I'm going to go and do this, instead of just buying a building for right now, how do I buy something which is suitable for right now, but then allows me to grow into it, so it's not just a short-term fix? So I bought an office building. It's way too big for us right now. It's like 800 square meters under roof. We occupy one floor of that, and we rent out, or renting, I should say. No one's occupied them yet. And we are going to rent out the other 2 floors. Now, as we grow, instead of me then going, fuck, now I've got to go find more space, because we can never predict business growth. It generally happens quite lumpy. You will either have to go find more space, you want to go buy something else. Where for me, I just, the tenant leaves, I have one of the floors and I move into it. This price point that you're looking at, $1 million for a light industrial warehouse, I'm assuming, there's a bunch of those. They've just recently gone through huge growth because all of the rental incomes on them have dramatically increased. And long term, I don't know if it's going to be like a really solid asset to go and dump a heap of capital in. And it sounds like you're probably going to grow out of it within like 3 to 5 years. So, like, I'd look at where is that money best spent in the short term? Is that best money spent in my own business, buying more inventory, growing my business, and actually growing it to a point where I need more space than I'm looking at right now? Is that money best spent in something else? Or, if I buy this commercial asset, I move out of it in 3 or 5 years and go find something else. Do I think the money still in that asset is going to perform long term just as a single investment? That's how I think about it. And I don't know about those small industrial sites.
yeah,
That's what it'll be. I'm assuming it'll be one of those small industrial warehouses in like a strata complex, yeah? 150
correct.
square
It'll
meters
be
or something?
probably around the 200 mark for that price. But I mean, it's even sort of contemplating whether I should go the commercial route or, just hop into a residential property and then
Are you a
continue
first home
leasing.
buyer?
Yeah, I don't have any property at the moment.
Yeah, well, I mean, if I was you, you're in Brizzy, like I'd take advantage of those first home buyer incentives. Skip stamp duty, skip lender's mortgage insurance, put in a really small amount of capital, and then use the rest of your money to go and grow your business, or, use it for something else, other assets. Yeah, I don't know. Commercial is just a hard one because in recent times, commercial in the sector that you're looking, commercial has gotten this big sugar hit because yields have increased, or rental income, sorry, has increased, which has increased the value of assets. That's not normal in the period like that we've had. It was just due to inflation. So if you hold that property for the next 3, 4, 5 years, and your rental income doesn't grow all that much, and there is more and more supply coming to the market. I know you said that you haven't been seeing much, but there is more supply of that stuff getting built. I just don't know if there's going to be a huge amount of growth in it. That's the only thing.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, like, it's an investment. You want it to grow your capital.
Yeah.
And what do you rent them at? Like, if you're spending $2 million on an asset, 200 square meters, sorry, for $1 million, what are you renting that space at? Like 50 grand a year?
Yeah, it'd be around there, plus probably outgoings and GST, but yeah.
Yeah, so you're renting them on like a 5% net yield. So the yield isn't like extremely good either.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Okay.
that's probably how I think about it. And if you can,
Alright.
if you can do something maybe bigger that you don't need all the space right now. I actually had this conversation with another guy another client of mine who's from Brisbane. Same thing I said to him. I was like, don't think about the right now. Think about what could we lease out, generate some income from the short term that we could potentially move into if you have enough capital to do so. But you also don't want to starve your business of oxygen because you put all your money into an asset, obviously.
Yes, yeah. Okay. All
All right.
Gives me something
Yeah,
to
but
think
I'd
about.
explore the first home buy, I think, for sure, man. You're in Brizzy, 5% deposit, no lenders mortgage insurance, no stamp duty. Get into
Yeah.
a property for like 35, 40 grand.
Beautiful. All right. Thank you for the advice.
Mate, my pleasure. Hope it helped.
Thanks.
All righty. Adam Smith. That sounds like a fake name, but I like it. Adam Smith, are you there?
Yeah, mate, I'm here. It is a
That's a
fake
great
name.
name.
It is a fake name.
Is it really?
Oh, it changed my last name on my
I
Apple
fucking
phone.
knew it. See, there you go.
I didn't mean to do it, but it did happen like that. So.
That's a classic. Mate, hit me with your question.
So my question was around what are you looking for when you're purchasing properties to build a granny flat? Do that dual occupancy, like land size and shape, and little details for getting tenants into that granny flat.
Yep. So it's a good question. It varies based on, the council we're buying in, because every council has its own requirement. So generally speaking, if I was to just generalize, regardless of council, we want to look at the site that's going to have the easiest approval. So first thing we're looking at naturally is like frontage of site, how many square meters it is. Does it slope towards the road as opposed to does it slope away from the road? Because that's obviously easy for stormwater and sewerage. Making sure there's no easements, making sure that there's no, water mains or anything running through the rear of the block. Then there's all the other things that are like council specific. So we build a heap of these things in Newcastle. Newcastle's got this thing called mining subsidence, just because underground mines in Newcastle, they were all everywhere many, many years ago. So there's different levels of subsidence. So we need to make sure it's not in certain levels, otherwise it makes it very difficult. And in an ideal scenario, we want to try and make sure we don't have to go through council. Because if you don't have to go through council and we can just do it through a complying development, which essentially means we just go through private certifiers, it's way more straightforward and it's easier. And
Yeah,
then, site access or relay access is obviously really good, but it's not necessity. Obviously a nice neighborhood, not busy roads, all that shit that you look for in a normal property, but they're the things we like specifically look for in a dual lock or a granny flat site. And you've probably seen if you watch any of my videos, like when I'm walking around, some of the things that I walk around, they all generally look the same, right? Ideally the front house is situated as close as possible to the front boundary, because that then allows you to have the feeling of a much larger block. If the house is in the middle of the block, for example, it feels much smaller because you've got a big front yard, which is generally useless. So all those things.
awesome. Thanks for that. Appreciate it.
Mate, no dramas. Was there a second part to that question, or are you just having a big breath?
I was thinking about maybe looking at the Belmont Lake Macquarie region. So
Oh, mate, we love it. We love that area.
That was kind of where my question was heading, towards the granny flat part as well. Buy something and then build up some equity, then do the granny flat, mate.
For sure, man. We do that just day in, day out. It's an absolute killer strategy. We've done a few that there's one that we just finished renovating. What's the address of it? You can do a drive-by and have a gander. It's on shit, it'll come to me. I'll say it when it comes to me. But we've done one, you'll be able to do a drive-by there, and it's like the perfect setup. Side access, down to a granny at the rear, front house is fenced off, front house is situated on the front of the block.
Yeah, nice.
Oh, it's annoyed me now. I can't think of the name. Anyway, I digress. All right, legend. Good shit.
Thanks for your time.
Ciao. All righty. Who is next? Mate, Gouldy. Is he still here? Oh, he's gone. Mate, Joshua Gould. It's a client. Good man. Who we got? Damien. Oh, he's still here. Damien. Here he is. Damien Rice, the great man. Welcome.
Hey mate,
How are you?
good Jack. How are you?
Mate, I am good. Is that an accent I can hear?
Yeah, mate.
That's good.
It is.
Mate, hit me.
Mate, I was chatting to you messages a year ago, talked to Nick and stuff. But anyway, I ended up purchasing a property myself and
Congrats, man. What'd you buy?
Mermaid Beach about a year ago. First
Nice.
investment
You
property.
Goldie.
So it's going good. I just wanted to know, mate. I think I've reached borrowing capacity. My broker
Yep.
tells me. So, wanting to know, should I pay down more of my owner occupier, or is there anything else I can do?
So I'm just reading the message that you put with it originally. So owner occupied debt of just over 400. Is that right?
Yeah,
Cool. And then what's the debt on Mermaid?
750.
So total debt of around 1.2, give or take.
Yeah.
Cool. So income wise, do you have like the capacity to continue to increase income or not so much?
Yeah. Yeah.
You do? Well, I generally find the best way to increase borrowing capacity is to make more money. That's the easiest way. Second to that, decreasing debt, obviously, but that requires surplus funds as well to decrease debt faster. The thing that I would get your broker to do is just run a scenario for you. So you've just got your own mental context to say, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Broker, if I was to decrease that 420 grand of owner occupied debt, what would I then have in capacity? Because then you'll know roughly like, hey, if I decrease it by half the amount, I'm going to have this amount of capacity. So it just gives you the understanding of the big change. But it'll have a decent impact if that's after tax income or after tax, you're paying that with after tax income. And then the other thing, man, yeah, is just to grow the income. Like that's going to be the big contributor. For every $1 of income that you earn, the bank will lend you 6. It's a 6-to-1 ratio. So you earn an extra 50 grand a year, it's an extra 300. You earn 100 grand a year, it's an extra 600. That's how I think about it.
Okay.
Yeah,
What
and then
about an
structuring.
SMS?
Yeah, SMSF. That I was going to say. That's another thing. I'm not sure what you've got in super, but that is completely separate to your current situation. That won't have any impact on your borrowing capacity. They don't take into consideration any of your existing debts. You'll be completely fresh slate in the SMSF.
What's your take on those overall? Do you guys do many of those? Do you advise it? Yes, no?
Yeah, I mean, we're not
Yes,
accountants.
no?
Obviously, we can't advise you on how to set one up and why you should set one up. But in short, yes, we buy a lot of properties inside of an SMSF. People have this misconception around what an SMSF is. An SMSF is just an investment vehicle, no different to a trust or a company or anything like that. It's just a vehicle. And obviously your superannuation would be inside of that SMSF, and then you can go and buy a property. So it's no different from how you would think about it in your personal name. You'll pay a slightly higher interest rate in SMSF as you would to your personal name. There are some technicalities in there that you can't do things, and you can do things that you won't be able to do outside of it. But by and large, it's the same shit inside of super as outside of super. And it's just about buying really good quality assets. But it's definitely a good way to feel like you're continuing to progress forward by buying something in there. And you would probably want somewhere between 200 to 300 grand of capital in the fund before you went and bought something.
It's kind of something I wanted to do last because it sort of limits the price point. In other words, ship property. So I was looking like getting something at 650 or even less. So it's kind of something.
How much money have you got in there
to do.
now?
250.
250. And then, yeah, I mean, depending, is it just yourself that would be in the fund? Do you have a partner or anything like that?
Yeah, probably just be me.
Just you. Okay. So, I mean, the way that they calculate serviceability inside of super is whatever your max contributions can be, which is $30,000 at the moment. Plus you'd have your rental income or the projected rental income from the property. And then if you can support extra contributions on top of your 30,000, which would be non-concessional, and again, get financial advice on this, then they'll actually allow you to borrow more money inside of the fund if you can show them that you can afford to make those non-concessional contributions, which your broker will be able to run you through. But with 250 in the fund, you'll be able to buy something more than 650 for sure.
Yeah, as I said, it would be like something I'd want to do last. So I just wanted to know what the options were with you guys if I was to approach.
But when you say last, how do you mean last? Like the last property you ever buy?
Yeah. Because you can't really
like
touch it or you can't really do anything with it until you're, the age, 60, 70, whatever. It's just
60 years old, you can access your super. Yeah, but like, I mean, the way that I like to think about wealth creation is holistically, right? So, instead of thinking about just the here and now, superannuation becomes very sexy when you get to 60, I can assure you. How old are you now?
So 39.
39. So you got 20 years before you get there. I'm assuming when you were 19, you didn't think 39 was going to come this quick, right? And I know it's the same for me. When I was 18, I didn't think it was going to become this quick. So if you prepare for super now, that number's going to look much better than if you wait 10 years before you do something, I can assure you. So the way that I think about it is if you want to retire at 50 years old, for example, you need to create enough wealth between now and 50, not to get you until the day that you die, but just to get you from when you retire to when you can access your super. So it's much easier to build enough wealth for a 10-year period than a 40-year period. So when we build out plans for clients, we go, okay, well, when do you want to retire? Most people say 50, 55. Amazing. How much do you want as an income? I want 150, I want 200 grand, whatever it is. Perfect. Two things we need. We need a debt-free owner-occupier property if you've got one, because that sucks up a lot of your income. And the second thing we need is enough capital to get us through from when we retire to when we can access our super. And then when you can access your super, you then roll into your super and it's tax-free and all the rest of it. So it's definitely a really key part to think about. And yes, you can't access it till you're 60, but if you retire at 50, that's the money you're counting on then to get you from 60 to whenever you die, which unfortunately comes for everyone, which is upsetting.
In short, mate, it's probably the next and only option I have immediately, if you know what I mean, if I want to get something this year.
And that's fine. Like if you can get something now at 650, 700 grand and it's got 20 years, the thing I love about super is that people can't sell it and can't access the money because everyone's got this like trigger happy mentality that they want to take the wins off the table. So you'll actually get 20 years worth of compounding and it probably will be your best quality or your best performing investment because you won't touch it between now and when you retire, which is amazing. So the earlier you do that, the more time it's going to have in the market, the more ability you're going to have to decrease that debt to zero and the larger your capital base will be when you get to retirement. And then once you've bought it, it's set and forget, move on to then back to your personal stuff. And then again, you want to just create enough wealth to get you from when you want to retire to when that money kicks in.
Okay, so if I do that, then say next year or the year after, what's my options? Do you reckon it's looking good for personal name again, or?
Yeah, potentially, because there's variables between now and the next couple of years. Rates hopefully will go down, which means an increase in borrowing capacity. That 420 of debt you've got, hopefully you smash that down, which again, increase in borrowing capacity. And you're going to have decreased debt, decreased interest rates, and that both of those things mean increased borrowing capacity, and then you might have the capacity to buy the next one in the personal name, for sure.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. All right. So keep chipping the PPOR
keep chipping
then as well. Yeah, Roger.
Chip the PPOR, and if you're someone who's like me and I like to know what I'm going towards, get an understanding of the impact it makes when you chip that to PPR. Just say, hey, if I had $200,000 less PPR debt, what impact would that have on your borrowing capacity? And it just makes that goal. You get a little bit hungry because you know the impact it's going to have. Where if I just say go pay 200 grand down, you don't really know what it's doing.
Yeah. Okay, mate. Nice to meet you. Cheers.
Mate, likewise. Thanks, legend. Ciao. Alrighty. I'll do a few more questions. Here we go. What do you look for when you are hiring a buyer's agent? Aaron Keane. That'll be an interesting question to answer. Let's do that one. Aaron Keane, the great man. Hello.
How are you, brother?
Hey, I'm good, man. How are you?
Very well.
That's good, man. Hit me.
Yeah, just wanted to see what you're looking for, really, when you're looking to hire a buyer's agent.
Mate, let me give you my experience when I hired a buyer's agent, which was many years ago, and I used Chris Gray. So what I looked for was someone who was where I wanted to be. That was simply it.
Just to say, I'm more. The question's more directed at employment, not.
Oh shit! Sorry, fuck. You want a job?
Yeah.
I was like, shit. He wants to hire a buyer's agent, mate. Oh, you know what you look for? You look for me. That's who you look for. Oh, that's funny. So what I look for in a buyer's agent is I don't look for a buyer's agent. That's what I look for.
Right.
So what I mean by that is no one who works in my organization, bar maybe one or two people, have been buyer's agents or anything like that previous to working for us.
Yeah.
So the thing that I look for, and it's exactly how I started, was I just look for people who just want to have a really long career and they want to be successful and they're willing to do whatever it takes to be able to get there. So
Yeah.
Everyone who starts in my organization, unless they're starting in a leadership role, starts as a glorified telemarketer, my friend.
Yeah.
And if they can't do 12 months of that, then they're definitely not going to be able to do 12 years of being a buyer's agent.
Yeah,
so that's
for
what I
sure.
look for. I look for people who have got grit, people who show up every single day. You know, they obviously are super ambitious, but also have the element of patience, because that's obviously very important.
Yeah.
And understand that it's no different to doing an apprenticeship. You know, when you go and become a chippy, you don't say, "Hey, mate, when am I going to run a crew?" You say, "Okay, what do I need to learn on day 2 of being an apprentice carpenter?" You know, that's the thing. But everyone gets into this industry, and I don't make it easy for myself, but everyone sees the money you can make and all the rest of it, and they go, "Fuck yeah, I want to be Jack Henderson, or I want to be Simon Cohen." And it's like, well, you're not those people. You need to work to be those people. That's the key. Because I've had so many people, like when I first started the business, I was a very different leader to what I am right now.
Yeah.
And I hired all these, I'm this and I'm that, and I've done this in the past. And 9 times out of 10, it meant BS. So now it's like I hire for values. I don't know if you can see behind me here, but they're my values and my company on the wall: selflessness, loyalty, dedication, and resourcefulness. And essentially what that means is everything's not about you. Everything's about everyone else. You're loyal to not just my company and me, but to yourself. What you say you do, you're going to do. You're dedicated, pretty self-explanatory, and you're resourceful. If I say go and do this, you don't need 10,000 answers to go and do something. You find a way.
Yeah, for sure. Yep.
So that's how I hire now. It's all based on those things, and we also fire on those things as well. So
yeah, mad, bro. No, that's good. Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah, for sure.
I hope that was valuable, bro. What are you doing now?
At the moment, I work at an automation company. I actually work with two of the clients actually that have gone through you. Alex Cripps,
really?
you know Alex Cripps.
Cripsy, mate, I'm pretty sure he was on here before.
Yeah, so Cripsy
He
is
on here.
Cripsy is the other leading hand that I work with, and then Mitchell Martin.
There he is, Cripsy. How are you, champion?
What's going on, boy?
and then Martin's doing the Mitchell Martin's doing the accelerator.
The other legend, mate. There you go. The boys.
I'm a little fucking chirpy bird. I talk about you all day, and yeah.
Oh man, that's a classic.
So,
well, mate, tell Cripsy to bring you as his +1 to the Christmas party this year.
I know you didn't bring me last year, fucking dog.
Mate, you missed a fine evening, I can assure you.
Yeah, nah.
That's a classic. Well, man, keep hustling. Just get Alex to shoot you my number and text me if I can help with anything else, man. But that's what I look for. It's just hustle, bro.
Yeah, Matt. Yeah, for sure. Right. Absolutely.
Legend. Cripsy, you got any questions, bro? You're here in the chat now. You may as well fire away.
Ask some questions, Alex.
Oh, I was just listening, but I think one I want to ask is about, say you're going for another property. Say you've got two like me going for another one, and you're getting capped out at about 800. But you want to get a better asset. Are you better off trying to wait and increase and all that to get in maybe the 1.2s, or you better just using that borrowing capacity while you got it and get something 800?
It's a good question. Yeah, no, it's a good question. So the way that the difference in the quality of the asset between 800 and 1.2 isn't going to be dramatic.
Yeah.
You know, like it's not going to get you in like a shit suburb or from a shit suburb to an amazing suburb. Like they're all relatively similar at that price point. Like if you went from 800 to 2 million, probably a little bit different.
Yeah.
So if you've got 800 now, there's a few things that I would do before I would say do anything else, which is if that 800 is with a major lender, see what you can get with maybe second tiers or non-bank lenders where you will pay a slightly higher rate, but you'll get more borrowing capacity. And a lot of brokers won't present that to you straight off the bat because obviously lots of people are rate conscious. So that would be the first thing that I do. Is see what you can max out with a non-bank lender, and maybe you might have to refinance other debt that you have to non-bank lenders as well, and just see what you can squeeze out of the cherry, because I'd much rather get the debt right now, and then as rates come down over time, you can refinance it back to major lenders when serviceability allows.
What's your experience with getting out of the non-bank and back to a first tier after you've held it?
It's fine. It's fine, man. I did it. So my first two properties with ANZ, when I bought my third, everything then went to Liberty, which is like a second tier lender essentially. Yeah. And then I even think and then my fourth was not Liberty anymore, and then I think it went back to like Bankwest or Rams or some shit like that.
Yeah.
So again, it's just where we're at in the credit cycle. So like the most important part's just getting the asset, and then over time, your income will increase, your debt will slowly decrease, like on your owner occupier. And then, rates hopefully will come down, which frees up serviceability. And it's just about keeping your finger on the pulse. That's the big thing. Because there's a lender now, it is a non-bank. I can't remember which non-bank it is, but I don't know if you listened to my podcast I posted the other day with Jeremy Harper, but he spoke about a lender where they actually don't assess you adding a buffer rate on top of their assessment rate. Because essentially what banks do now is if you're paying 6%, they assess you at 9%.
Yeah.
Where there's non-bank lenders now where if you can go into a 5-year fixed rate, which may or may not be the right thing, but just run you through the scenario. If you go in with a 5-year fixed rate, they'll assess you on the rate that you will pay, which is say like 5.5%, 6%, which dramatically increases your borrowing capacity if you use that product because you're not paying or having to get assessed on that extra 3%. You're working with Jordan now, aren't you?
Yeah, we're going through it. We're looking at most likely non-bank.
Non-bank, that's what you do.
Because I said I want to try and get to like the mill, and he said, we can't do it with the first year, so.
Yeah, so you just try and squeeze it with a non-bank. You just got to bite down and put up with the unfortunate repayments.
Yeah.
But in time, like I said, you refinance away from that and go back to major lenders.
Yeah, sounds good.
Alrighty, ledge on, bro. And if you need anything, just shoot me a line, bro.
Yeah, we'll do. Thanks, mate.
See you, legend. All right. I'm going to go all the way to the bottom. I seen a question before which I really liked. Now I need to find it. You lads don't have to be here. You can go home. Look at my team. They're still at the office next to me. They're great people. Loz, that's who it was. This is the Loz. Are you still here? You've got 2 kids. There's a good chance that you are. There is a good chance you are cooking dinner. Oh, Loz is still here. Here she is. Loz, are you there?
Yeah, sorry, I am.
Yes, Loz is here. There we go. How are you?
Now I feel like my questions, I'm not as advanced in the knowledge of the property and investment
Well,
market,
if anything doesn't make sense, you just tell me and I will try and break it down as simple as I possibly can.
Yeah, and I guess that's what attracts me to this particular night is because I find that a lot of what you say resonates with me. So
amazing. Well, this is every Tuesday. So if you want to spend every Tuesday with Jack, then you can do that. I'm here.
I probably will have to. So I've got these 2 investment properties that I bought with absolutely no knowledge of what I was doing.
Yep.
So one I've had for 13 years and one I bought during COVID. But I just don't know where I'm going or what I'm doing anymore. Like I wanted to buy another investment property and I have the pre-approval at 600K.
Yeah.
But it's like, do I buy another one or do I get rid of the ones I've got? Like I honestly, I don't know what to do.
Well, Loz, let's unpack it. So the one you bought 13 years ago, how much did you pay for it and what's that worth now?
I bought it for
Please don't tell me it was
400.
less than what you paid because that will make me upset.
No, it's
Oh,
in the
good.
it's in the inner west. It's on the
Of
train
Sydney?
line. Yeah. So
Amazing.
yeah, that's the problem with that one. I'm like, do I keep it? Do I sell it? So I bought it for 400 and it's probably worth, it's a 1-bedroom apartment. It's probably worth minimum 750.
Cool. So it's done okay. It hasn't done exceptional, but it's done okay. And how much debt's on that?
280.
Cool. So you got about $450-ish thousand worth of equity.
Mhm.
Awesome. And is that one paying for itself now with the 280 of debt with the rental income that's coming off it?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, that's good. No impact on your life. What's the second one?
So the second one I bought for 515.
Yep.
I'm
Where's
not
that one?
really. It's in Port Macquarie.
Cool.
I don't even know if that's like a good place to invest.
It's not a bad place to invest, that's for sure.
Yeah, so I think I don't know what it's worth. I just know what like my bank says it's worth, which is about 6 to 650.
Cool. And when did you buy that one?
During COVID, so
Cool.
2020 maybe or 2021.
So you got 2 properties, one's worth 650, one's worth maybe 750. So you've got combined assets of 1.4 mil, 280 of debt on one of them. And how much debt was on Port Macquarie?
I think it's still around 5 something.
Cool. So you're sitting at
Yeah.
like a 55% loan to value ratio, 7 to 800,000 worth of debt, 1.4-ish million worth of assets. You rent currently, you said in your message?
Yeah.
Cool. Where are you living?
Inner West.
Inner West. Cool. Live in the Inner West, renting, happy to rent?
I mean, yeah, I don't know.
I'm a
I
renter.
kind
Come
of,
on, renters are great.
yeah, I know, but when you've got 3 kids, it's like kind of like it's hard because you can't, it's like somebody else's property and it's like you can't do the things you want to do to the property to make it like a home for your children.
Like I don't have kids, so unfortunately,
Yeah.
I don't know what that's
But
like, but I can
it's
imagine it wouldn't be
fine for
ideal.
now. Yeah, but it's fine. Like we're very grateful, so it's not a massive issue.
Yeah. Okay. And you're 40 now, which said is in your message.
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
What's the outcome? What's the outcome that you want?
I guess we just have no financial freedom. Like we literally have to budget to go out for dinner. Like it's just everything's so expensive. But at the same time, I don't want it to deter me from progressing and moving forward in buying another property because it's like I'm 40. Like I need to either do it now or don't do it at all.
Yeah. So you're going to love the course that I'm putting together. So there's a whole topic on you will feel poorer before you feel richer, because unfortunately, that's real estate, right? You will feel so rich, I guarantee, if you sell those 2 properties down, you cash out and you put 750 grand of cash in your bank, you're going to feel rich as, but nothing's changed. You're just
That's
taking
right.
it from assets to cash in your bank.
Yeah,
and I feel the
yes.
same too. Trust me, when I've got lots of cash in my bank, I feel rich. When I don't, I feel poor. It's
Yeah,
the
and I
same.
guess
I'm not
also
kidding.
like I've watched my parents, they're retired and they own their property, but they've got no income because they
Yes, there
never
you
have
go.
bought an
You know
investment property.
you know what
So
Jack Henderson tells people all the time.
yeah, so my mom and my family, they obviously live very comfortably they own everything, their house, their car and everything, but they have no income. She can't go on holidays and she can't do what she wants.
Yeah, that's the issue, right? No income. When the
Yeah.
reality is, if you rent, you can hand back the keys and you can go and live in Italy for $600 a week if you
Yeah,
want to.
that's right.
So look, I can't tell you what to do, but this is how I personally would think about it. It's like the thing that people need to do to understand whether they're going the right direction or not, because that right now, from what I'm hearing, you're like, I don't know whether we're doing the right thing. And the reason you don't know whether you're doing the right thing is because you don't know what the right thing is. You don't know where you're going.
Yeah.
So the key that I always like to think about is like, what's an ideal outcome? Like, if you said I want to be Jeff Bezos and worth $100 billion, is that you probably got to do a lot of stuff between now and then, right? But most people don't think like that. Most people just want good life. They want the kids to go to good schools and they want to live comfortably and they want to do it by a certain age. And if that's the goal, if that's the ultimate goal, then between now and that certain age, there's sacrifice that happens. But then when you get to that certain age, you know that the sacrifice is worth whatever the goal is for you, right?
Yeah.
Because right now you got $1 million in equity or close enough to that number, which is an awesome position. And I'm assuming you've got superannuation as well, I hope.
Yeah. Yep.
Cool. And I'm not sure if you heard what I said to the other gentleman before.
Yeah, I have been listening.
Yeah, cool. So you heard when I said like the way that I think about wealth creation is if you want to retire at 50 or 55, for example, that money that you retire on doesn't need to make you live forever. It just needs to make you live until you can access your super and then superannuation kicks in. Yeah. Did you hear me say that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how I think about it. It's like, I don't know when you want to retire, but you need to work out how much money you need or want when that time happens, or when that time comes. And then you just reverse engineer it and go, okay, if I want that amount of income, what's the total amount of net assets that I need? And right now your net assets essentially is reflected of total value of the properties minus the debt. And that's your net worth essentially. And if you were to sell everything, that's the cash you'd have in your bank and that's the cash you'd have to generate you an income. And so for your knowledge, for every $1 million that you have of net assets, a general rule of thumb is you will get a 5% return on that money, which 5% on $1 million gets you 50 grand. So if you want 100 grand of income, you need $2 million worth of assets, which is about double what you have right now.
Yeah.
But you're only 40, so you got time.
So should I buy another investment property?
Well, I can't tell you whether you should or shouldn't because I know very little about your personal financial. You just said you have to budget to go out to dinner. I'd hate to tell you go buy another property and then you can't go out to dinner, right? But
yeah,
what I
but
would
like you
say,
said, like you have to sacrifice. Like you have to be a bit poor before you can.
you definitely have to be poor before you're rich. That's a given.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like, the only way you're ever going to get to the outcome that you want is by investing. You're not going to get there by saving. You're not going to get there by doing anything else. It's like you can only get there by either building a big company and selling it for a lot of money, making a significant amount of money in your job and investing it regularly, or investing in real estate and letting that real estate grow over time. Like they're really the only three options. Or go really high risk and just sell it all and go into crypto. That's a great idea. Don't do that. So that's really the only options.
So is that something you would do, like an analysis on what that next property could be?
For sure. We do that with all of our clients. Before we buy any property and do any of the stuff we do, the first thing is a portfolio plan. Now, you don't need to use us to do that. There's lots of people you can use for that, but that's what we do. Now, what that then shows you is like, what's your equity in the properties? What are they costing you? What's your total income? What are you guys spending? What's your surplus cash at the end of the month? Or the end of the month if you're at the end of your cash, because some people are in a negative position, unfortunately. And then we go, well, based on what you want to achieve, is there other things we could be doing? Like that gentleman asked before, can you potentially invest in super as opposed to your personal name? So you're growing your assets there. If you've got the surplus cash, can you also do it in your personal name? But that's really the thing you need to work out. Yeah, that's really it. And you've got good equity sitting in those properties as well. So there may be a world in which you sell them and cash out and invest the cash into something else. Obviously, real estate would be the play for me. And you actually increase your asset values, potentially get better assets. There's lots of different things you can do, but it's pretty important to keep pushing forward like you are now and not getting detracted by the hardness of life.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
My pleasure. But you're doing well. To have 2 investment properties is no small feat. So keep going hard, and you've got the capacity to buy another one. So go you.
Thank you.
My pleasure. We'll see you next Tuesday, hopefully.
Yeah.
All right. I've lost myself here. How are we going? All right. Next. What I would love to hear is in the chat. Don't ask me a question now. Let me know what you guys have thought about this and what could be more valuable for next week. Here we go. Jody F, you are getting your question answered. You've just come straight up. Jody F, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
There we go. How are you, Jody?
Good, thanks. How are you?
I'm good. Hit me.
So I am a single mother with 3 kids. I don't earn a massive income, but I'm looking at getting an investment property. I'm currently renting my sister's second investment property, so I'm quite stable here. And I'm just inquiring with the amount that I've been approved for, whether it's worthwhile looking at getting a buyer's agent.
How much are you approved for?
600, but that includes a 200 cash deposit.
So you're approved for 400-ish?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So approved for 400, you got 200 of cash, and you're going to go buy your first property. First things first, go you, for starters. Is it worth getting a buyer's agent? Look, it's a good question. I'm trying to think about how I answer this question. There's no reason you shouldn't get a buyer's agent, just as like there is no reason you should get a buyer's agent. The reason that I use one personally when I was younger is because I didn't want to make a bad decision. And I was like, am I going to pay this guy 20 grand and it increases my ability to make a good decision? And if I don't pay this guy 20 grand or whatever the money was back then, is it going to increase the likelihood that I make a bad decision? And for me, that was value. But other people see value in different things. Your budget is more than enough to use a buyer's agent, regardless of, there's lots of people out there that service those types of budgets. It's just on how confident you are to make a good decision versus a bad decision. That's really what it is.
I'm probably not very confident. I'm too scared of making the wrong decision. And I feel if I don't use a buyer's agent, I probably won't make the decision.
Yeah, well, there you go. So like paying someone an amount of money to make a decision is worth a lot of money, especially if you look at it over the next 10 or 15 years.
Yeah.
If you don't pay the buyer's agent an amount of money and you don't make a decision, you will be much poorer. Like that is a guarantee. So if like that for you is value, but to someone else, it's different. Like the value that they get would be different. So yeah, I think it's a positive thing. And then it's just about choosing the right one. And I think the right one for every single person is different. Like we as a company are not the right company for lots and lots and lots of people. We serve a certain type of person and we add a lot of value to that type of person. But there's many better companies out there that serve a different demographic much better than what we do. So that's also the thing is like you need to find someone who works with a lot of people similar to yourself. Obviously someone who's gotten lots of people similar to yourself great outcomes. And that, if I was in your shoes, is the right buyer's agent. And that's how I chose my one originally. It was just like the guy that I went with, Chris Gray, had the life that I wanted and he served lots of people who I wanted to be like. And I was like, well, that's a no-brainer for me. Hence the reason I didn't choose another one.
Okay.
Does that answer the question?
Well, yes, it definitely did. I am like moving towards getting a buyer's agent. But that was my second question was going to be like, how did you choose a buyer's agent? And I'm in Brisbane. And yeah, so I just wasn't sure which one to choose.
That's how I chose. I chose someone, and look, social media is a very powerful thing these days, right? Like there's lots of people out there, there's lots of people producing content. You can really get a sense as to who they are, what they do. You know, the internet's a powerful thing. You can do some Googling and find out lots of information about people, good and bad. And there's good and bad about me as well, no doubt about it. So that's how I would do it. And then also ask, I'm not sure if you have friends or family. Obviously, it sounds like you said you're living in your sister's property, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so your sister's obviously done some investing before. I'm not sure if they've used a buyer's agent before, but yeah, to be asking people who you know, like, and trust, whether they've used them before and who they've used and whether they've had a positive or negative experience. That's how I would do it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Hope that helps. But like I said, go you. That's awesome. You got the cash and you're doing something with it, which I applaud. All righty. We've got time for two more. Yeah, love you, Sally Rigby. Go you. Thanks, Loz. Angus Knight, your question was, you mentioned the service, specific type of client and people that you service. Look, generally our clients are small business owners or they are high income earners. And when I say high income earners, most of our clients have got combined income of 300,000 and above. They're our general type of client. Not saying we don't serve people that are not like that, but most of our clients are those people. Okay, here we go. Nick Fox, I'm gonna let you talk because you've asked politely. I want to talk. Let me hear it. Let's go, Nick.
Hey, mate. Can you hear me?
Hey, gotcha.
Oh, that's awesome.
The Fox.
How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good.
Awesome. Yeah, so I'm 24. Myself and my partner have purchased a property in Taree. We have also purchased another property in Ulladulla down south.
At 24, you're bloody busy.
Yeah, I've been working my ass off.
Good go you, man.
And I've obviously got, as my sort of as my mentor, it would be my grandparents because they're right into real estate. And ever since I was young, they were pushing it.
Yep.
So I am all set up to go again this year in 2025.
Yep.
And I'm, no matter what, definitely buying another one, no matter what it takes.
Love that.
And I'm going Newcastle after just kind of following you throughout everything.
Yeah.
I guess what I want to know is, so I've gone out on my own, so I'm working for myself now to increase my income. And
what do you do?
I'm a carpenter.
Yeah, awesome,
so I can add all the value to the properties, but I haven't done any of that yet because I'm just focused on accumulating. And then when I'm kind of capped out, then I'll just use my cash and I will flip them and do granny flats at the backs. And both of the properties that I have now have got potential to be renoed and extended or granny flat. So that's good. So I guess what I want to know is, well, it's two things really. Number one is, where would you recommend in Newcastle? I have a purchase price of about 650 to 700,000. I've been looking at Beresfield, Tarot, even then like that little bit more closer, like I think it's called Wall's End.
Yeah.
Cardiff.
Hey, did you hear our client before who was on, who spoke about his
Yeah, I
property in
did.
Wall's End?
Yes. Was he in Wall's End?
Crushed
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great
So
suburb.
would you recommend that I just go anywhere around there?
Yeah, man. I mean, look, the key with these suburbs is they are gentrifying suburbs, right? Like Wall's End and Taro is not Merriweather, I can assure you.
Yeah.
But they're great suburbs and they're gentrifying. So it's just about being on the right streets inside of those suburbs. So again, I'd recommend, which you probably are doing, drive the suburbs, see the good streets from the bad streets, and check for things like housing commission and all that type of shit. But all of those suburbs, man, are great. Obviously, with 650, 700, you're getting the entry level property into those suburbs, so you're probably going to have to do some work to them. But yeah, man, all those suburbs are great. You might snag something in places like Cardiff or Bullaroo. Like they're all on the Lake Macquarie side. But yeah, anywhere in that vicinity, man. Like Toronto, check out the suburb called Toronto, which is on the western side of the lake. Where else can I point you to? They're probably the main ones, bro. It sounds like you've been watching the content and the stuff that we buy anyway, so you sort of know that we're buying in those markets for that price point.
Yeah, definitely. And then I guess the second question would be, so of course I've gone out on my own. I'm going to be going in with a 1-year tax return with my new business, and we've forecasted everything, and I'm all good, and a broker and my accountant, like we've been talking, and yeah, everything's all set up. So it should all work smoothly. Otherwise, let's say I didn't want to wait till June this year, which I'm itching waiting. Otherwise, I can purchase right now, but I'd be going with a what's it called? A low doc loan.
Yeah, with a non-bank lender. Yep.
Yes, correct. I think we were looking at
La Trobe
either,
or something, is it? Or Pepper?
yeah,
or
even Aussie Activate.
Never heard of them, but there must be another non-bank lender. Yep.
Yeah, correct. But the issue with that, like I guess what I wanted to know was, I have the deposit for the house. I haven't used any equity yet out of the two that I've got. But what I wanted to know was, like, it was going to be like nearly a 9% interest rate.
Yeah, bro, I'm paying some of those puppies myself.
Yeah. So,
I
and
got
like
some debt with Judo Bank where I'm paying like 9% on it, and it's a sizable amount of debt. So
yeah. So, but like for what it's worth, okay. So like what are we in? We're in Feb. So is it worth me purchasing like what, fucking 5 months earlier? Or is it literally just worth me waiting the 5 months, do my tax return, and then I'm easily able to go with ANZ?
Yeah, I would just wait, man. The market's not going to change by that much. Yeah.
Yep.
And mate, 5 months happens quickly. Just head down, bum up, work hard, make money. Before you know it, it's June 30.
Yep. All right. Sick. Legend. Thank you so much.
Mate, my absolute pleasure. Well done, bro. Keep hustling. You're a prime example of no excuses, just action. That's the shit I like.
Thank you.
Hey, brother. One more. Jared Foyle, you're the last question. How do you deal with lifestyle creep? Oh, there you go. My gosh, does it creep? You there, Jared?
Oh, yep. How are you?
Hey, mate, I am good. How are you? Hope the lifestyle isn't creeping too high.
Mate, I'm kind of going down this path of just resetting everything and taking a step back and knuckling down a bit, because the last year has been a little bit too relaxed, I think.
What have you been doing?
Well, I pretty much stopped buying property the past year. Have some stupid things, a lot of bikes, Lotus Exige and stuff like that in the garage, and renting where I live right now just to be closer to the wife's parents. But with the way life is going, I just want to kind of come back to reality and keep building the portfolio a little bit more and focusing.
Right. Okay. So you've been spending cash on shit by the sounds of it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, well, fuck, man, it happens, right? So the way to deal with lifestyle creep, here's how I've dealt with lifestyle creep in the past. Interest rates go from 2% to 6%, and you get slapped in the face, and you go, hey, motherfucker, you need to not spend money on dumb shit because the world can change very quickly. That's how I've dealt with lifestyle creep in the past. I can assure you, that's just real life. That's how I'm telling you the truth. So generally, and this is not just with money, this is with everything in life. When things are like humming along, life's not too hard, life's not too easy, it's very hard to make change because we're not forced into it. As humans, we find the easiest route, right? That's why when you go to a set of stairs and there is an escalator there and a set of stairs, most motherfuckers will get on the escalator because it's easy. It's a path of least resistance. And the same is with life. Like you do things that are easy. Not investing is easier than investing. There's less risk. Buying shit is easier than saving money because saving money is discipline. But I can assure you, when you are forced into something, you will do it. Health is the same. People are fat and they don't work out and they get told they have cancer and they become skinny and they do work out. That's because they're forced into it. So like most people need to be forced into it, in short. And it sounds like something's happened in your life over the last 12 months, which has forced you to start thinking, I need to stop doing these things. But sometimes things need to get worse before they get better. And I know that from my own life. And that's what you need, a slap in the face with reality. And then all of a sudden reality hits and you're like, oh, fuck, I need to stop being this person and start being this person.
I guess the reality is most things could potentially, it draws the wrong crowds, and I'm kind of realizing it's the wrong crowds. But how would you go about resetting when you're in a position where you have two properties? One of it is a sizable home that's an investment property worth around 1.2 million. It's a 5-bedroom, 3-bathroom, 4-car home. It is set up. It's a traditional Queenslander, and downstairs is a full legal height granny flat.
Solid. Where is it? We'll buy it off you.
In Coal Falls in Ipswich.
Right. There we go.
It's on 900 square meters, and the way the driveway is set up, it goes all the way from the top to a completely level rear yard. Like I could put a granny flat there. And I owe about 700 on that property. And then the other property I have is in Ipswich again, just a normal 3-bedroom house, getting around 550 a week in rent, and got about 200k equity in that as well.
Cool. So what was the question around that?
What's a good way to kind of reset and progress forward? I'm already making steps. Like I'm selling the Lotus, Exige, selling a few bikes, selling a few cars. But what's the best way to reset and get back in the game?
Well, definitely selling shit, getting rid of any bad debts that you have, car loans, credit cards, all that shit, because that's going to eat up serviceability. So you want to remove that. And then what you want to do is you want to speak to a broker. You want to understand how much your borrowing capacity is. Chance you may not have any, that's also fine. If you don't have any, increase your income or decrease your debt. Two very, very simple things. I'll just ask you straight, how much do you earn, you or combined income? What do you guys earn?
Around 300 a year by myself. But making some steps to kind of push it up to the 500 a year mark.
Cool. So 300 grand a year, and you've got you said 700 of debt. And how much was the debt on the other one?
It was 450.
450. So you've got 1.15 worth of debt. So you've probably got roughly 600, maybe 800 grand worth of borrowing capacity left. So you've got the capacity to buy another property if there's no other debts and other stuff that I don't know about. And you've got equity in the properties. So the way to leap forward is sell the shit, stop spending money on dumb shit, and buy some property. And what I do to stop spending money on dumb shit is I just get so much debt that I don't have the capacity to spend money on dumb shit. That's a great strategy.
that does sound great. Do you think it's
then you got a decision. Should I buy a Lotus or should I pay my mortgages this month? I might pay my mortgages.
Do you think it's a bad idea with what I get from selling these stupid things to potentially put a property into my partner's name? I've done everything just completely by myself. And yeah, well, I could spare a deposit over that way. maybe
Potentially.
like
How long
10%.
you be on your partner? I mean, look, I'm not a fucking solicitor or a relationship dude. Trust me. I'm probably the last person you want to ask about relationships.
Yeah, we've been 5 years.
Okay, cool. I mean, the reality is if you guys split up, 75% of what you own is hers anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So yeah, I mean, you could do that for sure. You could help her.
Fair.
She could probably take advantage of some first home buyer incentives. But if you're only 300 grand a year, you've got more capacity anyway.
We bought her a Goldie unit probably 2 years ago. But I'm also thinking if I build both of us up at the same time to kind of take advantage of serviceability, or if I kind of pilot all myself.
It's not really going to matter because eventually you're going to use her. If you guys stay together, you're going to use both incomes eventually. So whether you do it right now, whether you buy another one yourself, it's not going to make a dramatic difference long term.
No, completely fair.
Just use the capital and the serviceability that you have and put it to work, because it's sitting there doing nothing is getting you zero benefit.
Oh, absolutely. Well, if you have any suggestions for granny flat builders in Queensland, definitely let me know, and I'll
Endeavour Build, my friend. We'll build it. Yeah, we build them all the time up there. Yeah, man, for sure. If you want us to give it a gander, more than happy to.
Yeah, absolutely. Better than the pool I was looking to put in there.
Yeah, don't put a pool in. That's a silly idea.
Yeah, no. 100%.
Especially in Ipswich, it'll probably flood and become a dam.
On top of the mountain, I bought it specifically
for that. All right, legend. Good shit, man. Well done. Keep hustling.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, man. Ciao. All right, guys, that was awesome. Thank you for, what is this? This is general advice. My team just hands me this. Please read this. This is general advice. Yeah, this is not to financial advice. You definitely should not listen to anything I say about financial advice. All right. Appreciate everyone. I hope that was valuable. I will see you all again next Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. Go and enjoy dinner, feed the kids, and have a great time. And make sure you put your socks on before your shoes, as my father always told me. See you guys. Ciao for now.